I never thought this would be my life. 3 years together, 2 years living under the same roof, making Sunday morning pancakes, binging dumb reality shows while I played on my phone. It wasn't exciting, but it was ours. It was solid. Or at least, I thought it was. Then, one night over dinner, Sophie looked up from her plate and said, "What do you think about opening our relationship?" I laughed, thinking it was a joke. Then I saw her face. She wasn't joking. My stomach twisted. "What?" She leaned in, eager, like she'd been waiting for the right moment to bring this up. "I've been reading about it, you know? How it helps couples grow, keeps things fresh. I mean, we're still young. I don't want us to wake up in 10 years wondering what we missed." I set my fork down. The room suddenly felt too small, like the walls were pressing in on me. "Is there someone you want to see?" Her smile faltered for just a second. So quick I might have missed it if I wasn't looking for it. "No, it's not about that. I just think it could be good for us." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But my gut told me otherwise. "You're not unhappy?" I asked. She reached across the table for my hand, her touch warm, familiar. "Of course not. I love you. I love us." Then why did it feel like she was already halfway out the door? I should have said no. I should have stood up and walked out, made her tell me the truth. But instead, I nodded, feeling like I was stepping off a cliff. "Okay," I said. The way her face lit up should have made me happy. But all I felt was something cold settling in my chest. That night, I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling while she scrolled through her phone, completely at ease. I thought about stopping this before it even started, telling her no, that I changed my mind. But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew. I'd lost her. I just didn't know how long it would take for her to realize it too. The next day, Sophie set up her dating profile. She asked me to help pick the pictures. I stood there, holding her phone, staring at photos of my girlfriend while she debated which one made her look fun but mysterious. "This one?" she asked, tilting the screen toward me. I swallowed hard. Sure. It felt like helping her pack for a trip she wasn't planning to return from. I tried setting up my own profile too, but it felt forced, like wearing someone else's clothes. I stared at the blank bio section, fingers hovering over the keyboard. What was I even supposed to write? In a relationship, but looking for something casual. It sounded pathetic. Meanwhile, Sophie was already getting matches, already talking to guys. 2 days later, she had her first date. She stood in front of our mirror in a dress I'd never seen before, applying lipstick with the kind of excitement she used to have when we planned date nights together. "How do I look?" she asked, turning to me. I forced a smile. "Great." She kissed my cheek and left. And for the first time in years, I was alone in our apartment. Completely, suffocatingly alone. She came home late that night. I was still awake, lying in bed, pretending to be asleep. I heard the door click shut, the soft rustle of fabric as she kicked off her shoes. Then the unmistakable sound of her phone buzzing. She giggled, soft, quiet, like she didn't want to wake me, like she had something to hide. I clenched my jaw, keeping my breathing even. A minute later, the mattress dipped beside me. Sophie sighed contentedly, then rolled over. A few minutes passed. Another buzz. Then the faint tapping of her fingers against the screen. She was still texting him. The next morning, she was practically glowing, humming while she made coffee, smiling to herself like she had some secret. I sat at the table, watching her. "How was your night?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay neutral. She turned, eyes bright. "It was fun." That was all she said. No details. No explanations. Just fun. I nodded slowly. Cool. She didn't ask how my night was. Didn't ask if I was okay. Just kissed me on the forehead like I was a damn pet and grabbed her back. "I might be late tonight," she said over her shoulder. "Meeting some friends after work." Right. Friends. She left, and I sat there, gripping my coffee mug so tightly my knuckles turned white. This wasn't working. She wasn't trying to strengthen our relationship. She was just dating other people and expecting me to sit here and be okay with it. I needed to do something. I set up a date. Not because I wanted to. Not because I cared. But because I needed to prove to myself that I could. I matched with a woman named Rachel. She seemed nice. Funny. We texted for a day, and I asked if she wanted to grab a drink. She said yes. It was that easy. The night of the date, Sophie barely looked up from her phone when I told her I was heading out. Okay, she said absently. Have fun. That was it. No hesitation. No jealousy. Just indifference. I sat across from Rachel at a dimly lit bar, listening to her talk about her job, her dog, her weekend hiking plans. She was smart, interesting, beautiful, and I felt nothing. Halfway through my beer, I realized I hadn't heard a single word she'd said. I was too busy thinking about Sophie, wondering where she was, who she was with, what she was doing. I ended the date early. Rachel was understanding, said she had fun, but she could tell my head wasn't in it. I appreciated her honesty. I drove home feeling worse than before. When I walked into our apartment, Sophie was curled up on the couch, laughing at something on her phone. She looked up when she heard the door shut. You're back early. I shrugged, hanging up my jacket. Yeah. She studied me for a second, then smiled. Did you have fun? It was the same question I had asked her this morning, and now I understood exactly what it meant. She didn't care. Not really. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I let that truth settle in. I wasn't losing Sophie. I'd already lost her. Sophie started going on more dates. It became routine. Twice a week, sometimes more. She'd spend extra time getting ready, trying on different outfits, asking me which one looked best. Like I was her damn stylist, not her boyfriend. And every time, I answered. Every time, I played along. Because what else was I supposed to do? She'd leave, all smiles and excitement, and I'd sit alone in the apartment, staring at the walls, trying not to think about where she was, what she was doing, who she was with. One night, I broke. I got in my car and drove. No destination in mind, just moving, letting the city lights blur past me. At some point, I parked outside a bar and just sat there, gripping the wheel, breathing hard. Then I pulled out my phone. I hesitated for a long time before finally typing out a message. Me? You busy? Emma responded almost instantly. Emma? Nah, what's up? I stared at the screen. I could have lied. Could have made something up. But I didn't. Me? I just need to talk to someone. Emma? Where are you? 15 minutes later, she slid into the seat across from me at a small diner on the other side of town. She looked at me carefully, like she already knew something was wrong. Okay, she said, setting her phone down. What's going on? I let out a breath and ran a hand through my hair. It's Sophie. Her expression didn't change. Just a slow, knowing nod. She's really doing it, huh? I let out a bitter laugh. Oh yeah, she's doing it. Emma stirred her coffee, not saying anything, just waiting. So I told her. Everything. How Sophie had blindsided me with the idea. How I agreed. Thinking maybe it would bring us closer, thinking maybe I could handle it. How wrong I was. How it wasn't about exploring or growth. It was just her dating other people and expecting me to sit at home, pretending it didn't matter. Emma listened, silent. When I finished, she exhaled and shook her head. That's not an open relationship, she said. That's just her doing whatever she wants. Something in my chest tightened. Hearing someone else say it made it feel real. Yeah, I muttered. That's what I'm starting to think. She watched me for a second, then leaned forward. So what are you gonna do? I blinked. What do you mean? I mean, are you just gonna sit around and let her treat you like this? I let out a dry laugh. What else am I supposed to do? Emma's lips pressed into a thin line. Then, quietly, you deserve better. I looked at her then, really looked at her. Emma, who had always been there. Who never judged, never pushed, just listened. She held my gaze, something unreadable in her expression. Something I hadn't noticed before. Or maybe I just hadn't let myself see it. I swallowed hard and looked away. Yeah, I said, more to myself than to her. Maybe I did. I didn't tell Sophie about Emma. Not at first. I let things play out, let her keep believing I was just sitting at home, waiting. I let her think I was still the same guy she had left behind, the one she expected to always be there when she was done having her fun. But things had already changed. Emma and I started talking more. At first, it was just texts, little conversations here and there, check-ins. Then we started meeting up, grabbing coffee, sitting in her car outside my apartment just talking. And for the first time in weeks, I felt seen. With Sophie, I had been disappearing, fading into the background of my own life while she went out and lived. With Emma, I felt like a person again. One night, Sophie was getting ready for yet another date. She walked out of our bedroom in a red dress I'd never seen before, adjusting the strap in the mirror. She turned to me with a smile. "What do you think?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No jealousy, no sadness, no ache in my chest, just indifference. I shrugged. "Looks fine." Her smile faltered, just for a second. She left a few minutes later, and instead of staying home, I grabbed my keys and went to Emma's. She opened the door in sweatpants and a hoodie, her hair tied up in one of those effortless messy buns that somehow made her look even better. She smiled when she saw me. "Rough night?" I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. "I just didn't want to be there." She stepped aside, letting me in without a word. We sat on her couch, some random movie playing in the background, neither of us paying attention. At some point, she turned to me. "You know you don't have to keep doing this, right?" I frowned. "Doing what?" "Letting her keep you as an option." Something in my chest tightened. She was right. I had spent so much time trying to hold on, trying to convince myself that Sophie would realize what she was doing and come back. But she wasn't going to, because she didn't think she had lost me. Not yet. Emma watched me, like she could see the exact moment the realization hit. She hesitated, then reached out, her fingers lightly brushing mine. It was the smallest touch, barely even there. But it was enough. I turned my hand over, letting my fingers curl around hers. And for the first time in a long time, I felt okay. Sophie noticed the shift before I even said anything. It started with the little things. I wasn't as available. I wasn't home every night when she got back from her dates. I wasn't sitting around waiting for her texts, responding immediately like I used to. And when she asked what I'd been up to, I didn't give her answers. "Oh, I went out," I'd say. "With who?" I'd shrug. "Does it matter?" That always got her. A flicker of something in her expression, a tightening of her jaw. One morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone when she came out of the bedroom, her hair messy from sleep. She yawned, stretching as she grabbed a mug from the cabinet. Then she glanced at me. "You've been seeing Emma a lot lately." I didn't even look up. "Yeah." A pause. "Like a lot." I took a sip of my coffee, finally meeting her gaze. "You never used to care what I did." She frowned. "That's not true." I just raised an eyebrow. We both knew it was true. Sophie had spent weeks living her best life, going on dates, coming home late, barely looking at me. She had made it clear, over and over, that she didn't care. But now, suddenly, she did. Now that I was the one pulling away, now that I wasn't sitting around waiting, now she cared. I set my mug down. "Are you asking because you actually care? Or because you don't like that the rules aren't working in your favor anymore?" She flinched, and I knew I'd hit the mark. I stood up, grabbing my keys. "I'm heading out." Her voice stopped me at the door. "You're going to see her, aren't you?" I turned back, my expression unreadable. "Yeah, I am." Sophie just stared at me. Her lips parted slightly like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. And I didn't wait for her to figure it out. I left. Sophie broke that night. I came home late, and she was already waiting. Arms crossed, pacing. Her jaw clenched so tight I thought she might crack a tooth. "Are you sleeping with her?" I shut the door behind me, exhaling. "Does it matter?" She let out a bitter laugh. "You know what? No, it doesn't. Because you've already checked out, haven't you?" I tossed my keys on the counter. "I checked out the moment you did." Her face twisted. "That's not fair." I took a step closer, my voice calm. "No? What's not fair, Sophie? That you got to spend weeks parading around with whoever you wanted, and now you don't like that I'm doing the same?" She swallowed hard, her breathing uneven. "I thought you'd always be here," she said quietly. And there it was. The ugly truth neither of us had said out loud. Sophie never thought she'd actually lose me. She thought I'd be the fallback, the safe choice, the guy waiting in the wings for when she was done exploring. She thought wrong. I grabbed my jacket again. I'm staying at Emma's tonight. She didn't stop me, didn't say anything, just stood there, watching as I walked out the door. I never came back.